Here is something strange that almost nobody talks about. Right now, while you are lying there, body tired, eyes ready to close, the room dark and quiet, your brain is doing something it almost never gets to do during the day. It is, finally, for the first time in hours, running without interruption, without a task, without a notification, without someone needing something from you. And the first thing it does with that freedom, it finds you. It finds the conversation from Tuesday that you thought you had let go of. It finds the moment 3 weeks ago when you said the wrong thing to someone you care about. It finds the question you have been carrying quietly all week, the one you cannot quite answer, and it places it directly in the center of your awareness, as if to say, "Here, we need to look at this now." And maybe you have had this exact experience, where sleep should be the simplest thing in the world. You are horizontal, you are tired, the conditions are perfect, and yet the mind does not cooperate. It speeds up, it gets louder, it becomes somehow more present than it was during the entire waking day. There is a reason for this, a precise, fascinating, scientifically documented reason. And when you understand it, when you understand what is actually happening inside your brain in these quiet moments, something interesting occurs. The experience does not disappear, but it stops being frightening. It becomes something you can watch gently from a slight distance, like observing weather from inside a warm room. That is what this video is, a long, slow, warm walk through the science of the human mind. 100 calm psychology facts woven together into a single conversation. One that starts where you are right now, at the edge of sleep, and drifts with you toward it. There are no alarming revelations here, no shocking experiments, no reasons to feel worse about yourself than you might already feel tonight. Just the quiet, endlessly interesting science of what it is like to be a person with a brain, in the dark, trying to rest. Let us begin. The first thing worth understanding, and this alone might change something for you tonight, is what neuroscientists call the default mode network. This is a collection of brain regions that light up not when you are focused on a task, but precisely when you are not, when the emails stop, when the conversations end, when the last external demand of the day is done, and the brain is finally free to do whatever it wants. This network becomes extraordinarily active in moments of apparent rest, and what it does with that activity is remarkable. It turns inward, it begins scanning, it replays events, it imagines future scenarios, it constructs and updates the ongoing story of who you are and where you stand in relation to the people around you. Scientists were initially surprised by how much energy the default mode network consumes. They had assumed that the brain would rest when you rested. What they discovered instead was that the brain at rest is, in many ways, working harder than the brain at a task. The quiet is not quiet at all. It is simply quiet in a different direction. And here is the detail that connects this directly to what happens when you lie down at night. During the day, this network is regularly interrupted. A task demands attention. A conversation pulls focus. A sound, a screen, a demand All of these temporarily silence the inward-facing machinery and redirect the brain outward, but at night, those interruptions stop. The default mode network gets an open runway, and the first passengers it loads are everything you did not quite finish processing during the day. This is why the thought you barely noticed at 2 in the afternoon can feel enormous at 2 in the morning. It has not grown. You simply have nothing left to distract you from its actual size. There is a study that researchers describe when they want to illustrate just how uncomfortable people find their own quiet minds. In 2014, psychologists at the University of Virginia asked participants to sit alone in a room with their thoughts for 15 minutes. Nothing else. No phone, no book, no music, just their own minds. Many found it genuinely unpleasant. Some found it so uncomfortable that when researchers later offered them the option of giving themselves a mild electric shock to break the monotony, a significant number chose the shock over the silence. They preferred physical discomfort to being alone with their thoughts. And maybe you have felt a version of this, not the electric shock version, but the compulsive reach for the phone, the inability to sit in a waiting room without looking at something. The way absolute silence in a familiar room can feel strangely louder than noise. This is not weakness. This is one of the most consistent findings in modern psychology. The human mind, left without a task, does not simply rest. It wanders. It worries. It generates. It explores, sometimes beautifully, sometimes painfully. Being alone with your own mind is, for most people, one of the more challenging things you can do. And the dark, quiet moments at the end of the day ask you to do exactly that. What changes things is not eliminating the wandering. It is learning to observe it differently. Think about the last time a memory came back to you that you genuinely did not expect. Not a pleasant, welcome memory, but the other kind. An old conversation. A moment where you misread something. A thing you said in a room that no longer exists to a person you may rarely see anymore. These memories arrive with a strange precision. You remember the exact quality of the light, the specific way a sentence was delivered, your own voice saying something you wish you could take back. Meanwhile, you may not be able to clearly recall what you ate for breakfast 4 days ago. This asymmetry is not accidental. It is, in fact, one of the most elegantly documented patterns in all of memory science. The brain does not record experience the way a camera records footage. Memory is reconstructive. Every time you remember something, you are not playing back a file. You are rebuilding it from fragments, filling in the gaps with inference, expectation, and your current emotional state. The memory that exists today may be slightly different from the one that existed a year ago, because each retrieval slightly alters the reconstruction. But the reason emotionally charged memories, and especially negative or embarrassing ones, stay so vivid comes down to a small almond-shaped structure deep inside the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is the brain's emotional alarm system. When an experience carries strong emotional weight, fear, humiliation, intense surprise, the amygdala signals the hippocampus, which manages memory consolidation, to encode this moment carefully, deeply, with detail. Research suggests that emotionally uncomfortable experiences are encoded as much as 3 times more vividly than neutral ones. The embarrassing memory is literally louder in the brain's filing system than the pleasant afternoon. Not because you are choosing to remember it, but because the brain flagged it as important. And why would it flag it as important? Because for most of human evolutionary history, social mistakes genuinely were. Belonging to a group, being trusted and accepted by the people around you. These were survival necessities, not social preferences. A tribe that turned against you was not a metaphor. It was a death sentence. So the brain evolved to take social missteps extremely seriously, to store them carefully, to review them thoroughly, so that you might learn from them and not make the same mistake again. The problem, of course, is that the brain that evolved in that context is now living in this one, where most social mistakes are survivable, where the person who noticed your awkward moment has almost certainly forgotten it by now, where the filing cabinet that was built for genuine danger keeps triggering for things that are, by any real measure, quite small. There is a name for this particular feeling, the certainty that everyone noticed, everyone judged, and everyone is still thinking about the moment that made you want to disappear. Psychology calls it the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect refers to the consistent human tendency to overestimate how much other people notice us. When something embarrassing happens, it feels as though a spotlight has been placed directly on you. Bright, obvious, impossible to miss. You are certain the whole room saw. You are convinced the impression is permanent. But research shows something almost poignant. While you are standing in that spotlight, the people around you are not watching. They are standing in their own spotlights, monitoring their own impression, worrying about their own words, processing their own version of the same room. Studies that tested this directly found that people consistently believed others had noticed things about them. An embarrassing detail, a nervous stumble, an awkward comment that others had genuinely not registered. The spotlight was real, but it was pointed inward, not outward. You may have noticed this in reverse. Think of a moment when someone else did something awkward in a group you were part of. You probably remember that happened. But do you remember it with the intensity that person is almost certainly still carrying? Do you still think about it the way they probably still think about it? Probably not. You moved on. Because you had your own spotlight to manage. Now here is something worth sitting with tonight, because it is one of the quieter and more useful findings in psychology. The version of your thoughts that arrives at night, the heavy, urgent, occasionally catastrophic version, is not the accurate version. It is the fatigued version. The brain's prefrontal cortex, which handles rational thought, proportionate assessment, long-term perspective, and emotional regulation, is highly sensitive to fatigue. As the day wears on and the hours accumulate, this region becomes progressively less effective. Its ability to keep the amygdala in check, to quiet the emotional alarm that says, This is terrible. Everything is ruined. Nothing will work out. Degrades throughout the day and reaches its low point right before sleep. So the night version of any given worry is the version that has the least regulatory input from the rational brain and the most amplification from the emotional brain. The worry has not grown. The machinery that normally keeps it proportionate has simply clocked out. Researchers who study this describe it plainly. What feels urgent at night often resolves once the nervous system is rested, not because the problem disappears, but because the morning brain, the one that has slept, whose prefrontal cortex has been restored, is a different instrument for assessing the same situation. This is worth remembering tonight, specifically, whatever is currently presenting itself as a problem of great urgency. The version of it that exists right now, in this moment, in the dark, is probably not the real size of the problem. It is the tired version, the unregulated version, and it will look different in the morning. If this kind of calm, honest science of the mind is what helps your nights feel a little less crowded, you can subscribe to deep science sleep and come back whenever your thoughts feel too loud. There is always something here worth listening to. Let us talk about something that does not get discussed nearly enough, the Zeigarnik effect. And once you know what it is, you will recognize it in approximately 100 situations from your own life. Bluma Zeigarnik was a Russian psychologist who noticed something curious in a cafe in Vienna in the 1920s. The waiters could remember the details of every open order with perfect accuracy. Who had ordered what still needed to arrive, what had been partially served. But the moment a table was settled and the bill was paid, the details vanished almost immediately. The waiter, who had flawlessly tracked 12 items from a complicated order, could, 5 minutes after the table cleared, remember almost nothing about it. Zeigarnik took this observation into the laboratory and confirmed it systematically. The brain holds incomplete tasks in a kind of active memory, an open loop, flagged and persistent. Completed tasks are filed and released, but unfinished ones stay alive in working memory, repeatedly brought forward into awareness, gently and sometimes not so gently demanding resolution. This is why you cannot stop thinking about the conversation you did not finish, why an argument that ended without a proper conclusion keeps replaying, why a decision you have not yet made keeps inserting itself into quiet moments. The brain is not tormenting you. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is keeping the open files available. It is waiting for you to close them. And here is the piece of this research that may help you most tonight. The brain does not actually require resolution to release the loop. It requires a sense of structure around the unfinished thing, a committed plan. A specific when and how can signal to the prefrontal cortex that the situation is under management, even if it is not yet resolved. The loop does not need to close. It needs to know it will close. This is the real mechanism behind keeping a journal before bed, or writing a brief list of what needs to happen tomorrow. The act of writing does not solve anything, but it tells a specific, ancient part of your brain. This has been received. it is noted, you can stop flagging it for now, and remarkably, that can be enough. Here is something that might feel counterintuitive, but which the research supports quite clearly. Trying not to think about something makes you think about it more. This is sometimes called the ironic process theory, after research by psychologist Daniel Wegner. In a classic experiment, participants were asked to not think about a white bear. They were told to think about anything at all except that, and what happened was predictable to anyone who has lain awake trying to force themselves to stop thinking about something. The white bear appeared constantly. The instruction to suppress the thought created a monitoring system in the brain that was constantly checking whether the thought was present, and in doing so, kept bringing it back. The same mechanism explains why just stop worrying does not work as advice. The effort to suppress a thought requires thinking about it first in order to identify what to suppress. The suppression engine and the thought are running simultaneously, and when cognitive resources are depleted, as they are at the end of a long day, the suppression fails while the monitoring continues. The thought gets louder. What actually works is something different. Not suppression, but gentle observation, noticing the thought without fighting it, acknowledging its presence without treating it as a command. Psychologists call this diffusion, the ability to observe a thought as a thought, rather than being carried inside it as if it were reality. Not, I am a failure, but I notice I am having the thought that I am a failure. The second phrasing creates a gap between the experience and the identity, and in that gap lives a kind of freedom that the suppression strategy never allows. Let us drift now into something genuinely surprising about the brain. A discovery made only in 2012 that changed everything scientists thought they knew about why we sleep. For centuries, the purpose of sleep was genuinely mysterious. We knew that animals deprived of sleep died. We knew that humans deprived of sleep became cognitively impaired, emotionally dysregulated, physically unwell. But the precise biological reason, the why beneath the necessity, remained elusive. Then neuroscientist Maiken Nedergaard and her colleagues at the University of Rochester discovered something that nobody had been looking for because nobody had imagined it could exist. The brain has a cleaning system, not a metaphorical cleaning system, a literal physical mechanism that uses cerebrospinal fluid, the liquid that bathes and cushions the brain, to flush toxic waste products out of brain tissue. They named it the glymphatic system, a word that combines glial cells, the brain's maintenance cells, with the lymphatic system, the body's broader waste-clearing network. And here is what makes this discovery relevant to the exact moment you are in right now. This system is almost exclusively active during sleep. In studies on mice, the glymphatic system was approximately 10 times more active during sleep than during wakefulness. During sleep, brain cells slightly shrink, opening channels through which cerebrospinal fluid can flow more freely, flushing out metabolic waste, including proteins like beta amyloid, which are associated with Alzheimer's disease, that accumulate during the waking hours. Think about what this means. Every single day, as you go about your life, your brain is generating waste, not dramatically or dangerously. This is simply the byproduct of being conscious, of thinking, of processing experience. And every single night, the cleaning crew arrives, quietly, without any effort on your part. The fluid moves through the tissue. The debris is cleared, the maintenance is done. The brain that wakes tomorrow morning is, in a genuinely physical sense, cleaner than the brain that went to sleep tonight. You are, right now, in the act of letting your brain clean itself. This is not a pause in your life. This is one of the most biologically important things you do, and while that remarkable maintenance is underway, another process runs simultaneously, one that is perhaps more personally felt, even if less often understood. Sleep is doing something extraordinary with your emotional memories. Researchers who study the relationship between sleep and emotion have found something that looks almost like overnight therapy. The brain, during REM sleep, the phase associated with dreaming, which tends to dominate the second half of the night, reactivates the emotional experiences of the day. But it does so in a very specific neurochemical environment, one that is lower in norepinephrine, the stress-related chemical, than the waking brain. This matters enormously. The hypothesis developed by sleep researcher Matthew Walker, among others, is that during REM sleep, the brain replays emotionally significant memories in a state that strips away some of their affective charge. The memory is preserved. The facts, the context, the who and what and when. But the raw, immediate emotional intensity is gently reduced. The memory is kept, but the sting is softened. Research has found that people who reported dreaming during sleep showed significantly reduced emotional reactivity to difficult experiences compared to those who did not report dreaming. The memory of the painful thing had not been erased, but its ability to cause distress had been quietly diminished. This is why sleeping on something difficult is not avoidance. It is not weakness. It is giving your brain the neurochemical content it needs to make an experience more bearable. The morning version of a painful thing is always less sharp than the night version, not because you have decided to feel better, but because something in the architecture of sleep, running without your conscious involvement, has done its quiet, careful work. Let us talk about the emotions themselves for a moment, what they actually are. Beneath the surface experience of having them, emotions are not simply feelings, they are whole body events. When fear arrives, it does not just exist in the mind. The heart rate increases, the muscles tighten, blood flows toward the limbs and away from the digestive system. The pupils dilate. When safety arrives, the opposite unfolds. The nervous system settles. Digestion resumes. The muscles release. The face relaxes in ways that can be measured in millimeters. The psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett has done remarkable work challenging the traditional model of emotions. The idea that fear, joy, sadness, and anger are universal, hardwired states that appear automatically in response to specific situations. Her research suggests something more interesting and more complex. Emotions are constructions. The brain takes incoming sensory data from the body and the environment, combines it with predictions based on past experience, and actively builds an emotional experience from those components. This means that two people can face the same situation, the same conversation, the same piece of news, the same ambiguous silence, and construct genuinely different emotional experiences from it. Not because one is more emotional than the other, or more sensitive, or less rational, but because their brains are drawing on different libraries of past experience to construct the present moment. And this understanding that emotions are built, not simply received, carries a quiet but important implication. If emotions are constructions, they are to some degree revisable, not by willpower or suppression, but by expanding the range of experiences the brain can draw on, by learning new frameworks for interpreting ambiguous situations, by building a richer library over time. You are not imprisoned in your emotional architecture. The architecture is alive. It can be updated. Here is something that happens between people that most people have experienced, but few have a name for. You walk into a room where someone is anxious. You did not know they were anxious before you walked in. But within a few minutes you notice that something in you has shifted. Your shoulders have tensed slightly. Your thoughts have taken a slightly more concerned quality. The mood has somehow transferred. Psychologist Elaine Hatfield coined the term emotional contagion to describe this phenomenon. The way emotions spread between people through unconscious mimicry, the way a smile can travel from one face to another, the way someone else's calm can settle into your nervous system almost without your noticing. The mechanisms involves what researchers call the mirror neuron system. Neurons that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. When another person smiles, certain neurons in your brain respond almost as if you had smiled yourself. The physical expression of the emotion creates feedback in your own emotional processing. Emotion moves not just through words, but through posture, vocal tone, facial expression, the pace of breathing, the tension or ease of a body in space. This means that the emotional atmosphere of the spaces you inhabit genuinely affects you. Not symbolically, but neurologically. The people you spend the most time with are, in a measurable sense, a part of your emotional regulation. Their calm can help regulate yours. Their anxiety can dysregulate it. The people who leave you feeling settled and clear after a conversation are doing something real. The people who leave you feeling inexplicably unsettled, even when nothing obviously difficult was said, are doing something real too. And here is the complementary fact, one that points in a gentler direction. Safety, in the nervous system, is not just a thought. It is a physiological state. The body has specific signals it uses to assess whether the environment is safe. The slowness of a voice, the openness of a face, the predictability of what is happening around you, the warmth of temperature, the familiarity of sound. When these signals are present, a different biological state emerges. Psychologist Stephen Porges spent decades mapping what he calls the polyvagal system, the way the vagus nerve, running from the brainstem through almost every major organ, constantly assesses the environment for threat and safety, and adjusts the body's state accordingly. In a state of perceived safety, the vagus nerve supports what Porges calls the social engagement system, the capacity for connection, rest, digestion, genuine communication, and the kind of open, curious attention that makes learning possible. In a state of perceived threat, even subtle, ambiguous, not consciously registered threat, the system contracts. Attention narrows. Vigilance increases. The body mobilizes for defense. Even when the threat is a worried thought at midnight, the environment you have created right now, horizontal, warm, dark, quiet, is sending specific safety signals to your nervous system, physiological cues that activate slowly and gradually the biological state of rest. The body is not simply waiting for permission to relax. It is reading the room, and the room is telling it that it is safe. Let us travel gently into the territory of the subconscious, which is perhaps the most misunderstood and most fascinating part of the human mind. A study from Caltech, published in 2024, estimated that conscious thought operates at approximately 10 bits per second. That is roughly the speed of reading 2 characters of text. Meanwhile, your sensory systems take in approximately 1 billion bits of information from the environment every second. 1 billion versus 10, the vast, overwhelming majority of what your brain processes never reaches your conscious awareness. It is handled elsewhere, sorted, filtered, acted upon, and resolved by systems that operate entirely below the surface. What reaches consciousness is a tiny, carefully curated selection of the total processing. The rest, the enormous remainder, happens in regions of the brain that you never directly observe. This is not a deficiency. This is efficiency at its most elegant. If every bit of incoming sensory information had to pass us through conscious awareness before being processed, you would not be able to function. The subconscious handles the routine, the automatic, the continuous, so that consciousness is free for what genuinely requires deliberate attention. But it means something else too. It means that a great deal of what shapes your experience, your intuitions, your preferences, your immediate reactions to people and situations is generated by processes you cannot directly observe. The feeling that something is wrong before you can say what, the inexplicable ease you feel with some people and the inexplicable discomfort with others, the creative solution that arrives unexpectedly in the shower after you stopped deliberately thinking about the problem. None of these are mystical. They are the product of subconscious processing, vast, parallel, associative, and often more accurate than the slow, sequential, deliberate processing that happens in conscious thought. There is a moment that many people describe in the years after a difficult experience, where they suddenly find that the experience has changed. Not what happened. What happened is fixed, but their relationship to it, the weight of it, the way it sits in the body when they revisit it. Psychology calls part of this process post-traumatic growth. But the same principle operates at smallers in everyday difficult experiences that never approach the clinical definition of trauma. Time, sleep, integration, conversation, the quiet accumulation of new experience. These things genuinely alter the structure of a memory. They do not erase it, but they contextualize it. They place it in a larger frame. They allow it to mean something different than it meant when it was fresh and raw and the only thing in the room. This happens in significant part because memory itself is not a static archive. Every time you retrieve a memory, you briefly destabilize it. It becomes malleable again, open to slight modification, before it reconsolidates. Neuroscientists call this reconsolidation, and it is one of the mechanisms by which experience can be processed and gradually integrated into the ongoing narrative of a life, rather than simply replayed, unchanged forever. The difficult thing from 3 years ago is not the same in your brain as it was the month it happened. Something has been working on it, quietly, in all the nights since. The nights you slept on it, the dreams you had, the conversations that shifted your perspective, even slightly, the person you have been slowly becoming in the time in between. Let us talk now about something most people walk past without noticing, even though it is happening constantly. Attention is not a spotlight you control. It is a resource you allocate, and the allocation is often made for you by systems far below the level of conscious choice. Research on a phenomenon called inattentional blindness has shown repeatedly that humans are capable of completely failing to perceive something that is directly in front of them, clearly visible, even large, simply because attention is occupied elsewhere. In the most famous demonstration of this, people asked to count basketball passes in a video failed in large numbers to notice a person in a gorilla costume who walked into the scene, stopped, beat their chest, and walked away. They were looking directly at the screen, but their attention was elsewhere, and so the gorilla, for all practical purposes, did not exist. This is not a failure of intelligence. It happens to everyone. What you notice in any given moment is not a faithful representation of everything that is present. It is a construction built from a small selection of incoming information shaped by what the brain expects to find, what it has been primed to look for, and what carries emotional salience. The practical implication of this is quietly significant. The aspects of your life that receive consistent attention will, over time, feel more real and more present than those you regularly overlook. Not because they are more real, but because the brain builds its model of the world from what it habitually processes. What is noticed becomes normal. What is noticed with warmth and gratitude becomes, slowly and genuinely, a source of warmth and gratitude. This is not wishful thinking. This is the mechanism behind the consistent research, finding that deliberate gratitude practices, the regular, intentional direction of attention toward what is working, what is present, what is good, have measurable effects on mood and well-being over time. They are not changing the external facts. They are retraining where attention goes, and therefore what the brain builds its daily experience from. Here is a fact about the human brain that most people find genuinely surprising the first time they encounter it. you are not making most of your decisions. This is not an exaggeration. Research in neuroscience, including famous studies by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s that have since been replicated and extended, found that the brain generates preparatory activity for a voluntary movement several hundred milliseconds before the person consciously decides to move. The decision appears in the brain before it appears in awareness. The conscious experience of choosing follows a process that has already begun. More broadly, a substantial body of research in cognitive science suggests that the vast majority of human decision-making is handled not by deliberate, conscious reasoning but by fast, automatic, associative systems that operate without our awareness and deliver their conclusions to consciousness as seemingly spontaneous preferences, intuitions, and impulses. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who received a Nobel Prize for his work in this area, described this as two systems: one fast, automatic, emotional, and largely unconscious, and one slow, deliberate, effortful, and conscious. In everyday life, the slow system is largely offline. We rely on the fast system far more than we realize. And the fast system, while often remarkably effective, is also the source of many cognitive biases, emotional reactions, and automatic patterns of thought that, on reflection, we might choose differently. Understanding this is not cause for despair. It is cause for a particular kind of compassion toward yourself. So, many of the thoughts that arise, the reactions that happen, the patterns that repeat, they are not the product of careful, conscious deliberation. They are the product of an ancient, fast, automatic system doing its best with what it has. The fact that you sometimes react before you think, feel before you reason, judge before you assess, this is not failure. It is the honest condition of being a human with a brain. And this brings us to something that may be one of the most important and most neglected findings in all of modern psychology. Being kind to yourself is not soft. It is not self-indulgent. It is not the avoidance of accountability. It is, according to an increasingly substantial body of research, one of the most effective strategies available to a human being for building resilience, sustaining motivation, and maintaining genuine well-being over time. Dr. Kristen Neff, a psychologist at the University of Texas at Austin, has spent decades studying self-compassion, defining it not as self-pity or lowered standards, but as treating yourself with the same warmth, understanding, and patience you would naturally offer to a close friend who was struggling. Her research has found that people who practice self-compassion show higher levels of emotional resilience, greater motivation to improve after failure, lower rates of anxiety and depression, significantly more stable self-worth than those who rely on harsher, self-critical approaches. The inner critic, the voice that says you should have done better, that others would have handled this differently, that your mistakes are evidence of something fundamentally insufficient about you, does not, the research suggests, make you better. It makes you more afraid. And fear-based motivation is less stable, less creative, and less sustainable than motivation rooted in genuine care. Dr. Neff describes 3 interlocking components of self-compassion: self-kindness, warmth toward yourself in difficulty, common humanity, the recognition that struggle and imperfection are not unique to you, but part of the shared experience of being human, and mindfulness, the ability to hold your own pain in balanced awareness without suppressing it or being swept away by it. Perhaps the most counterintuitive finding in this research is what happens to motivation. People who are self-compassionate after a failure are not less motivated to improve. They are more motivated because their desire to do better comes from a place of genuine care rather than from a place of shame and fear. The person who says, "I made a mistake and I care about doing better," is more likely to persist than the person who says, "I am a failure and I am terrified of what that means." Let us move now into something that sits at the intersection of philosophy and neuroscience: the question of the self, of who exactly you are. Psychology and neuroscience together suggest something both humbling and oddly freeing: the sense of a continuous, stable, unified self is, to a significant degree, a construction, not an illusion, but not a fixed, unchanging object either. The self that exists right now, in this moment, is something the brain is actively generating. It is built from memory, your stored sense of who you have been, from prediction, your expectation of who you will be, from narrative, the story you tell about how those two connect. The default mode network, which we encountered at the very beginning of this video, is central to this process. It is the network most associated with self-referential thought, with thinking about yourself, your past, your future, your relationships, your identity. When this network is active, the self is being constructed and maintained. When it quiets, as it does in moments of deep focus, or deep meditative absorption, or deep and restful sleep, the active maintenance of the self temporarily pauses, and people who regularly experience those moments of self-quieting, through meditation, through creative absorption, through the kind of deep focus states that psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow, often describe them as among the most peaceful and satisfying moments of their lives, not because they cease to exist, but because the ongoing project of maintaining and defending a self temporarily rests. Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying flow, the state of complete immersion in a meaningful activity, where challenge and skill are so well matched that the mind stops generating self-referential chatter and simply moves. He surveyed over 100,000 people across cultures and occupations about the moments they found most satisfying. And what he found consistently was that the peak moments of human experience were almost never the passive, comfortable ones. They were the fully absorbed ones, the ones where the self got quiet because the activity was demanding enough to consume it entirely. There is something gentle and worth knowing about the nature of habits, which perhaps govern more of daily life than most people fully realize. Research suggests that somewhere between 40 and 50% of daily behaviors are habitual, performed not through deliberate conscious choice, but through automatic patterns that run without requiring input from the decision-making brain. You drive the same route. You reach for your phone at the same moments. You respond to certain emotional triggers in the same sequence. You think in certain situations in the same kinds of circles. None of this is failure. Habits are the brain's most elegant efficiency mechanism. When a behavior is repeated consistently in a consistent context and followed by some kind of reward or relief, the brain gradually transfers that behavior from the effortful, deliberate system to the automatic one. The behavior becomes cheaper neurologically. It requires less attention. It runs faster. It frees up cognitive resources for other things. The architecture of a habit follows a loop, a trigger, a routine, a reward. The trigger is a cue, something internal or external that activates the pattern. The routine is the automatic behavior, and the reward is whatever keeps the loop running. The relief, the pleasure, the sense of completion. Once this loop is encoded, it runs efficiently and persistently, often without any conscious initiation. This is why habits are so difficult to stop through willpower alone. The trigger still fires, even when you have decided to change the routine. The neural pathway has been established. The most effective way to change a habit is not to eliminate it, but to substitute. Keep the same trigger, deliver the same reward, but insert a different routine in between. The loop is preserved, only the behavior changes. And here is the quiet reassurance at the center of all this. The habits that are causing you difficulty right now, in thought, in behavior, in emotional response, are not who you are. They are patterns that were once useful or were once the response available, and that have simply been reinforced past their usefulness. They can change, not through force and rarely quickly, but through consistent, patient substitution, through new experience accumulating in the filing system, through neuroplasticity, the brain's lifelong capacity to form new pathways and strengthen new patterns. You are not your habits. You are the one who can slowly and with care choose different ones. One of the most quietly surprising findings in the psychology of human connection is this: the quality of your close relationships is a more reliable predictor of well-being and longevity than almost any other factor that has been studied. The Harvard study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies of human well-being ever conducted, following participants over more than 80 years, found that people with warmer, more satisfying, close relationships lived longer, reported higher life satisfaction, and showed slower cognitive decline than those who were more socially isolated, regardless of other factors, not the number of relationships, not social status, not health behaviors, or financial security, or professional achievement. The warmth of the closest relationships. Robert Waldinger, one of the directors of the study, has described this finding in terms that are disarmingly simple. Good relationships keep us healthier and happier, period. Not wealth, not fame, not achievements, the people. The brain reflects this in its deepest architecture. Social connection is not a preference. It is a biological necessity. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, is released through positive social contact, through touch, through eye contact, through genuine laughter, through the feeling of being truly understood. Dopamine and serotonin are both implicated in social reward. The nervous system is calibrated to be regulated in part by other people. We co-regulate each other constantly. The calmness in another person's voice slowing our own nervous system down. The safety in a familiar presence telling the threat detection system to stand down. Chronic loneliness, by contrast, has effects on the body that researchers describe in terms usually reserved for other significant health risks. Studies have found that social isolation carries health risks comparable to smoking, approximately 15 cigarettes per day. It increases inflammation, disrupts sleep, raises cortisol, and activates the threat detection system chronically, keeping the body in a state of low-level emergency that wears on every organ system over time. This is not meant to be alarming. It is meant to be honest about the seriousness with which the brain and body take connection, and perhaps to quietly suggest that the relationships in your life that feel important, the ones you have been meaning to tend to, the ones where there is warmth available on both sides, are worth your attention, not because productivity requires it, but because your nervous system requires it in the same way it requires sleep and food and air. And here is something adjacent to this, a finding that speaks directly to what happens in the gap between people in a conversation. Psychologists who study listening have found that what most people think of as listening, waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can say what you have been preparing, is not actually listening. Genuine listening is a specific cognitive state characterized by what researchers call focused attention and suspended judgment. It involves not just receiving words, but attending to tone, pace, body language, the things that are being approached and avoided, the emotional undercurrent beneath the surface content. And people can feel the difference even when they cannot name it. The experience of being genuinely listened to, of speaking and sensing that the words are actually landing somewhere, is physiologically distinct from the experience of speaking to someone who is waiting for their turn. Being truly heard activates the same social bonding circuits that physical warmth activates. It registers in the nervous system as safety. The person who makes you feel genuinely heard is doing something neurologically meaningful. And you can be that person for others, not by being endlessly available or self-sacrificingly attentive, but by occasionally deliberate bringing the full and undistracted quality of your attention to what someone is saying, by not immediately preparing your response, by staying curious for one more moment than you might naturally, by allowing a slight pause after someone finishes speaking, rather than rushing immediately to fill it. The pause is where people feel heard. It is where the words have somewhere to land. The mind is moving slower now. Perhaps yours is too. There is a quality that the narration has been quietly moving toward. Softer, more spacious, less concerned with arriving anywhere. This is intentional. Because the things that are most useful at the edge of sleep are not the sharp and startling ones. They are the ones that make the world feel slightly more coherent, slightly more understandable, slightly more safe. So let us spend some time in the softer parts of the science. Research on what psychologists call psychological safety. The felt sense that it is permissible to be imperfect, to not know, to make mistakes without catastrophic consequence, consistently finds it to be one of the key ingredient environments where people genuinely flourish. Teams that feel safe take creative risks. Relationships that feel safe deepen and sustain themselves. Children who feel safe explore more, learn more, and recover from setbacks more quickly. But psychological safety is not only something that exists between people. It is something you can cultivate in your relationship with yourself. The inner environment, the one no one else can see, the one that narrates your experience and judges your choices and decides what you are allowed to feel, can be more or less safe. The mind that meets its own thoughts with curiosity rather than alarm is a mind that can rest more easily. The mind that treats its own imperfections with something like understanding rather than contempt has access to a quality of inner quiet that the harshly self-critical mind rarely finds. This is not asking you to pretend things are fine when they are not. It is not asking you to ignore what genuinely needs attention. It is only suggesting that the quality of attention you bring to your own inner life, the tone of the voice with which you address yourself, especially in the dark, matters in ways that are measurable, in ways that the nervous system registers and responds to moment by moment. You already know how to be patient with something you love. You already know how to speak gently to someone who is struggling. That knowledge is available. It does not have to be reserved only for others. Here is one more surprising thing before the narration begins to find its end. Sleep itself, the experience of being asleep, involves something that no one has ever fully explained. The transition into sleep is, in a sense, a daily rehearsal of the most profound kind of letting go. The grip of self-consciousness loosens. The monitoring of how you appear to others quiets. The ongoing project of managing your identity pauses. And in the moments just before sleep, in the liminal state that researchers call hypnagogia, the mind produces something quite different from its daytime output. Thoughts that are not quite logical, images that arrive without being summoned, connections between things that, in waking life, would not obviously belong together. This is the creative edge of consciousness, the place where the structured, rule-following mind begins to loosen, and the more associative, more poetic, more generative mind briefly takes over. Many people throughout history, artists, writers, scientists, have described this as one of the most productive mental states they ever entered. Thomas Edison, it is said, would nap briefly whilst sitting up, holding a ball in each hand, so that the moment he truly fell asleep and his grip relaxed, the sound of the balls hitting the floor would wake him, allowing him to capture whatever idea had surfaced at the boundary of sleep. Whether the story is precisely true or not, it points at something real. The edge of sleep is not just a transition. It is a specific and somewhat rare state of consciousness that the waking mind never quite accesses. It is the last creative threshold before rest begins. And now the rest is very close. The brain has been moving gradually toward a different mode of operation since the first moment you settled in. The default mode network's urgent processing is beginning to slow. The prefrontal cortex, which has been managing and monitoring and regulating all day, is standing down. The amygdala, which flagged danger and urgency and social concern throughout the waking hours, is beginning to quiet. Something ancient and deeply reliable is taking over. Not you, consciously, but the biological intelligence that has been keeping human beings alive and asleep and waking for hundreds of thousands of years. It knows what to do. It does not need instruction. It simply needs the conditions you have already provided. A still body, a dark room, a mind that has, for this brief time, been given something else to follow. The glymphatic system is beginning its work. The cerebrospinal fluid will begin its slow, gentle transit through the spaces between cells, carrying the day's metabolic waste out of the tissue and toward disposal. The cleaning crew is arriving. Everything that accumulated, the neural byproducts of a day of thinking, feeling, deciding, reacting, is being addressed. The emotional memories of the day are beginning their journey toward integration. The charged ones will be met in the MEM cycles to come with the particular neurochemistry that softens their edges. What felt sharp tonight may feel gentler by morning, not because the facts will change, but because the brain will have done what it does faithfully every night, held the difficult thing in the conditions most conducive to healing it. There is a phrase that appears sometimes in the research on resilience, the psychological quality that allows people to move through difficulty without being permanently altered by it in damaging ways. The phrase is not a prescription or a platitude. It is an observation made repeatedly across different populations and different kinds of difficulty. People who come through hard things intact, not unchanged but intact, tend to share something. Not strength in the conventional sense, not the absence of feeling, not any particular personality type, but rather the presence of what researchers call meaning-making. The capacity to place difficult experiences within a larger frame, to find in them something that extends beyond the suffering itself. This is not about silver linings. It is not about forced positivity. It is about the specifically human capacity to narrate experience in ways that give it context. To say, not just this hurt, but this happened, and here is where it fits in the longer story of who I am and what I have come to understand. This narration is always happening. The question is only whether it is conscious or not, whether the story being assembled in the quiet of the mind is one of hopeless repetition or of gradual, hard-won meaning. You do not have to have that story finalized tonight. The most honest answer about difficult things often is, I do not know yet what this means. I am still in the middle of understanding it, and that is allowed. Being in the middle is not the same as being stuck. Being in the middle is simply being in the process, the real, slow, non-linear process of being a person who is still becoming. The breath has slowed, perhaps. The body is heavier in the good way. The thoughts that were moving through earlier, the ones that arrived with urgency and demanded attention, are moving differently. Now, less insistent. More like weather passing through than like commands requiring response. This is how it goes, eventually. Every night, no matter how loud the mind got, no matter how many loops ran, no matter how many old conversations arrived uninvited, eventually, not by force, not by performance, not by achieving the right mental state, the system begins to shift. The biology takes over from the biography. The body remembers what it knows. You are not managing this. You are simply present for it. And one of the quietest and most generous psychology offers is this: the evidence, consistent and wide, that the brain is fundamentally oriented toward healing, that left to the right conditions, rest, safety, the passage of time, the slow integration that sleep provides night after night. It moves toward equilibrium rather than away from it, not because everything becomes fine, but because the brain that was built to survive has also been built over the long arc of experience to recover. The difficult things you have carried, the ones that felt permanent, the ones that felt like they would always be, this heavy, have very likely already changed in the years since you first picked them up. Quietly, in the nights you slept, in the conversations you had, in the small incremental shifts of perspective that accumulate across a life so slowly that they are almost invisible, until one day you look back and realize that something that once defined you no longer does. This is the default direction, not forward in a straight line, but forward the way water finds its level, gradually, persistently, without force. Let the breath be easy. Let the weight of the body settle fully into whatever surface is holding it, the mattress or the pillow, or the warm heaviness of blankets. The physical world is doing its part, providing the surface, the darkness, the temperature, the quiet. The brain is doing its part, beginning the gradual handoff from the waking state to the sleeping one, from the deliberate mind to the dreaming one, from the active construction of self to the quiet suspension of it. You have done yours. Whatever this day held, whatever it required of you, whatever weight you carried through it, you brought it to an end. You lay down. You let something other than effort take over. There is a particular quality of mind that the very end of wakefulness allows. Loose, unconstrained, mildly surprising to itself. Follow it when it arrives. The strange image, the sentence that doesn't quite make sense, the feeling that is not quite a feeling. These are the signs that the transition is happening, that the brain is releasing its grip on the day. You know your mind a little more now than you did at the beginning of this. You know why it gets loud when the world gets quiet. You know why it holds on to old conversations and embarrassing moments with such care. You know that the urgency of the night version of any worry is physiological, not truthful. You know that somewhere inside the apparent chaos of the restless mind there is a system that is working, cleaning, consolidating, softening, integrating, preparing. There is a moment somewhere in the middle of an ordinary day when you catch yourself smiling at nothing. Not because something funny happened, not because anyone asked you to, but because some internal state, some configuration of memory or anticipation or simply the quality of the light, arranged itself into something that felt briefly like happiness, and then the moment passes. And you go back to whatever you were doing, and you probably do not give it another thought. But psychology would like to give it a thought, because that small, involuntary smile, the one nobody saw, that you cannot even recall the specific cause of hours later, is one of the most reliable indicators researchers have found of something called hedonic tone, a baseline emotional temperature at which a person tends to operate when no particular event is pulling them up or pushing them down. Most people are not aware they have a baseline. They experience their emotional life as a sequence of events. Things happen, they feel things, those feelings pass, new things happen. But the research suggests that much of what we experience as mood is not a reaction to specific events. It is the baseline reasserting itself. The events push us up or down temporarily, but the tendency is always to return toward that resting temperature. This is related to what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. The observation that human beings are remarkably good at adapting to both positive and negative changes in their circumstances, returning toward their baseline emotional level, even after events that, at the time, seemed like they would permanently alter how they felt. The person who wins a large amount of money feels extraordinary for a while, and then returns gradually to something close to where they were. The person who suffers a significant loss feels devastated for a while, and then, slowly in most cases, returns. This is not depressing. It is, in many ways, one of the most resilient features of the human mind. It means that the disasters we anticipate, the things we are certain would ruin us, that we spend so much energy catastrophizing about, are typically more survivable than they appear from the outside. The mind adapts, the baseline reasserts, the capacity for ordinary moments of contentment endures, and it means something else, too. It means that the relentless pursuit of conditions for happiness, the idea that if only certain things were in place, the baseline would finally shift to something more satisfying, may be somewhat misguided. The conditions change. The baseline changes less. What shifts the baseline more reliably, the research suggests, are not events, but practices. The habits of attention, the quality of relationships, the degree to which daily life feels meaningful and connected to something larger than immediate comfort. Something happens in the brain during moments of genuine curiosity that is worth understanding, because curiosity is one of the more underappreciated emotional states in human psychology. When the brain encounters a gap in its knowledge, a question it doesn't have an answer to, an ambiguity it cannot immediately resolve, a very specific kind of activation occurs. Researchers studying this have described it in terms of the brain's reward system. Curiosity activates many of the same circuits that respond to other rewarding experiences. The desire to know something, the lean-in toward a question, the engagement with something genuinely interesting. These are not neutral states. They are positively valenced. The brain is motivating itself toward the resolution of uncertainty by making the search itself feel good. This has an interesting implication for learning. Curiosity before you acquire information makes the brain more likely to retain that information once it arrives. Studies have found that when participants were in a state of curiosity about one question, they showed better memory not just for the answer to that question, but for incidental information presented at the same time, wanted information they had no particular curiosity about. The curious brain is a more receptive brain across the board. And there is something in this that applies to the sleepless mind. The mind that is anxiously cycling through worry is not in a state of curiosity. It is in a state of threat assessment. But the mind that can shift into something like gentle curiosity about its own experience. What is this feeling? Where did this thought come from? What is this about? Often finds that the quality of the mental experience changes. The same material, approached with curiosity rather than alarm, sits differently. It becomes something to explore rather than something to escape. Here is a fact about language and thought that tends to genuinely surprise people. The words you have available for your emotions shape the emotions you are capable of experiencing. This is not a metaphor. It is a finding from psychology and cross-cultural research that demonstrates that emotional granularity, the number of distinct emotional concepts a person has access to, affects how they process and regulate emotional experience. Psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett, whose work on emotion construction we touched on earlier, has found that people with a richer emotional vocabulary, who can distinguish between, say, feeling anxious and feeling apprehensive, or between sadness and grief, or between frustration and resentment, are better able to regulate their emotional states. The ability to name something precisely appears to support the ability to respond to it precisely, rather than reacting to a single, undifferentiated negative signal. There is a Japanese word, mono no aware, that has no direct English translation but describes something like a gentle, bittersweet awareness of impermanence. The recognition that beautiful things pass, that moments end, that everything that exists in the present tense is moving always toward its own completion. The experience this word points at is one that English speakers can have, obviously, but having the word gives it a different kind of reality, makes it available as a distinct emotional experience, rather than something that dissolves into the larger category of sadness or melancholy. The expansion of your emotional vocabulary is, in a genuine way, an expansion of your emotional world, not because new words create new feelings, but because they create new ways of seeing and identifying and engaging with what was always already there. The relationship between the mind and the body is one of the oldest subjects in philosophy and one of the newest in science. For most of Western intellectual history, these were treated as separate things. The mind thinking, the body functioning, with the connection between them mysterious and possibly irrelevant to the operation of either. Contemporary neuroscience has largely abandoned this separation. The mind is not housed in the body like a driver in a car. the mind is the body, or more precisely, the experience we call mind is the output of a physical system. The brain and nervous system and gut and hormonal environment that is always and entirely embodied. There is no thinking that happens without a body doing the thinking. There is no emotion that exists purely in the mind without some correlate in the physical state of the organism. This has practical implications that are slowly making their way into clinical practice. The body's state affects the mind's functioning directly and measurably. Sleep deprivation alters emotional regulation, decision-making, and cognitive flexibility. Chronic physical tension in the muscles, the kind that accumulates from years of managed distress, is associated with higher baseline anxiety. The way a person breathes, the pace and depth and regularity of the breath directly influences the activation state of the nervous system through the vagus nerve, and in the other direction. The mind's state affects the body's functioning. Chronic psychological stress, as we have discussed, measurably alters immune function, cardiovascular health, hormonal balance, and sleep quality. What we carry in the mind, we carry in the body. The two are not separated by any clean boundary. They are one system, described in two different languages. This is not meant to imply that all physical symptoms are psychological in origin, or that mental effort can overcome physical illness. It is meant to suggest that the care you bring to your psychological life, the habits of thought, the quality of your sleep, the warmth of your relationships, the degree to which you feel genuinely safe, is also care you are bringing to your body, and that the care you bring to your body, the sleep, the movement, the breath, is also care you are bringing to your mind. You cannot tend to one and leave the other entirely to itself. They are not different things. Here is something that most people have experienced, but that takes on a different quality when you understand the science behind it. The feeling, after a long and difficult period, of things finally beginning to settle, of some weight that you have been carrying gradually, almost imperceptibly, lightening, of waking one morning and finding that the first thought of the day is not the same dark one that greeted you for weeks or months. This is not imagined. It is not simply a matter of choosing a different attitude. It is a neurological process, the slow, incremental rewiring of a brain that has been organized around a particular threat or difficulty, gradually reorganizing itself as that threat recedes and the evidence of safety accumulates. The brain changes, not quickly, not in a straight line, with setbacks, with days when the weight seems just as heavy as before. But the direction, when the conditions are right, when there is genuine safety, real rest, honest connection, the passage of time is toward equilibrium, toward a different organization. Neuroscience uses the word plasticity for this, the brain's capacity to form new connections, strengthen new pathways, and allow old patterns, the ones that no longer serve, to gradually fade through disuse. Neuroplasticity is not a young brain's exclusive property. It continues throughout life. It continues in your brain, right now, regardless of your age, in ways that are influenced by your sleep, your experiences, your attention, and your relationships. The brain you have tonight is not the brain you will have in a year. Not dramatically different, perhaps, but different. Changed by everything that happens in between, including what happens tonight, in sleep, in the quiet, invisible work that will run from the moment consciousness releases its grip until the moment it returns in the morning. There is a concept in psychology that I find quietly beautiful, and that belongs in the final stretch of any conversation about the mind. It is called integration. In developmental psychology and in attachment research, integration refers to the process by which different parts of experience, different memories, different aspects of self, different emotional responses are gradually connected into a coherent whole, not unified into something perfectly smooth or resolved, but genuinely connected, acknowledged, given their place in the larger structure. The opposite of integration is what researchers call fragmentation, the state in which parts of experience remain disconnected from each other, unacknowledged, undigested. Traumatic experience, when it goes unprocessed, tends to exist in this fragmented state, not integrated into the ongoing narrative, but stored separately, erupting into the present in unexpected ways. But integration is also what ordinary life asks of us constantly at smaller scales. Every day brings experience that needs to be digested, connected to what came before, placed in some kind of relationship to the ongoing story. And sleep, particularly the dreaming mind, is one of the primary mechanisms through which this integration happens. The REM dreaming brain is doing something more than replaying events. It is connecting them, drawing associative threads between seemingly unrelated things, finding the emotional through lines that link today's experience to last year's and to the long-buried earlier ones. This is why some people, after a night of vivid and complex dreaming, wake with an intuition they did not have the day before, a sense of something having settled that was not settled when they lay down. The integration happened not in consciousness but through it, in the dreaming mind's capacity for a different kind of thinking, a more associative, more connective kind, that the waking mind, with its preference for logic and sequence, rarely allows. There is a quality of mind that the very best of sleep creates it, something that most people have felt in the first moments of waking after a genuinely good night. A clarity that is not effortful, a sense that the world is slightly more navigable than it seemed last night, a capacity for patience, for openness, for the small ordinary pleasures of being alive that was genuinely harder to access in the hours before sleep. This is not incidental, it is biological. The prefrontal cortex, fully restored, reasserting its capacity for perspective and regulation. The amygdala, processed and quieted by the night's neurochemical work. The body, cleaned and rested and physiologically renewed. The memory system, consolidated and organized. The emotional material, softened and integrated. You do not achieve this state, you allow it. You provide the conditions, and then you get out of the way. And the brain, which has been doing this for every night of your life, through every difficulty and every complexity and every unsolved thing, does what it was built to do. let us linger a little longer, because the night has not finished with you yet, and there is still more that the science of the mind has to offer, not as information to be stored, but as company to drift with. Think about the last time you changed your mind about something genuinely important, not a small preference, what you felt like which route to take, but something substantive, a belief about yourself, a view about how the world works, an assumption you had carried for years without questioning. Changing your mind in the real sense is one of the harder things a human being can do. And there is a neurological reason for this that goes beyond stubbornness or ego. The brain builds models constantly from the very first moments of experience, before language, before memory in the explicit sense. The brain is constructing internal representations of how things work, how people behave, how situations unfold, what causes what. These models are updated by experience, but they are not updated freely. The brain has a strong preference for confirming existing models rather than revising them, because confirmed models require less computational work than revised ones. The prediction loop is efficient. The prediction revision loop is costly. This is the neurological substrate of what psychologists call the confirmation bias we discussed earlier. But it extends deeper than that concept usually implies. It is not simply that we seek information that confirms our beliefs. It is that the brain's very perceptual system is organized around prediction, and prediction is based on existing models. What the brain predicts it will see, it is more likely to see. What it does not predict, it may genuinely not perceive, even when it is present. Changing your mind, then, requires something unusual. Encountering evidence that is sufficiently discrepant with the existing model that the brain cannot simply filter it out, and being in a state of openness, of relative safety, of genuine curiosity that allows the discrepancy to be received rather than defended against. This is why significant personal change so often happens in relationships. In the experience of being genuinely seen by someone whose perception of you differs meaningfully from your own. Being truly known by another person, having them reflect back something about you that you had not seen in yourself, can constitute exactly the kind of prediction-discrepant experience that allows a model to revise. You cannot argue yourself into changing your mind, but you can encounter someone who sees you differently, and sometimes that is enough. There is a researcher named John Cacioppo who spent decades studying loneliness, not as a social condition, but as a biological state. What his research revealed was that loneliness does not just feel bad in the way that all unpleasant emotional states feel bad. It does something specific to the brain and body that is distinct from other forms of unhappiness. Lonely people, his research found, show increased vigilance for social threat. Their brains become more sensitized to ambiguous social signals, more likely to interpret an uncertain expression as hostile, or a delayed response as rejection, an innocuous comment as criticism. This hypervigilance is protective in intent. The brain is trying to help navigate a social environment that feels threatening. but it creates a self-reinforcing cycle. The hypervigilance leads to more defensive behavior, which leads to less successful social interaction, which reinforces the sense of isolation. Kakiapo's research also found measurable effects on sleep in lonely people. More fragmented, more disrupted, with less of the deep restorative sleep that the body and brain most need, the nervous system in a state of social threat. Even a chronic, low-level social threat does not fully enter the deep rest state. Some part of it remains alert. Some part remains scanning. This is important to understand, not as a cause for despair, but as a reason for compassion, both toward yourself and toward others. The person who seems defensive or difficult or quick to read negative intent may not simply be those things. They may be operating from a nervous system that has been in a state of social threat for long enough that its perceptual system has reorganized around that threat, and the most genuinely helpful response, and for others in this state and for yourself in moments when you recognize it, is not confrontation. It is the persistent, patient provision of evidence of safety. Something extraordinary happens to time during certain kinds of experience. You have probably noticed this, the hour you spent in a state of complete absorption, working on something that genuinely engaged you, or lost in a conversation that felt effortless, contracted. It ended before you expected it to, and you were surprised to look up and find that it was that late. And you have probably noticed the opposite too. The hour you spent waiting for something, watching the clock caught in a loop of boredom or anxiety, expanded far beyond its actual length. It felt like several hours. The clock seemed to have slowed down. Psychology has studied this extensively. The experience of time, not its measurement, but its felt quality, is deeply influenced by the state of attention. When attention is highly focused on the present, when you are absorbed in an activity, when challenge and skill are matched in that sweet spot that Csikszentmihalyi identified as the experience of time contracts. There is simply less room in that state of consciousness for the meta-awareness that tracks the passage of time. The clock-watching mind is absent, and so, retrospectively, it feels like less time passed. When attention is fragmented, scattered, or uncomfortably self-focused, when you are bored or waiting or worrying, the opposite happens. The meta-awareness that monitors the passage of time is very much present. The clock is watched, and watched time moves slowly. This has a gentle implication for the experience of lying awake at night. The mind, that is anxiously watching itself not sleep, monitoring its own wakefulness, calculating how many hours remain, tracking the distance between the current moment and an acceptable rest, is experiencing a particular kind of time. It feels very long, not because it is, but because the monitoring mind is present and the absorbing activity is absent. What changes the experience is not forcing sleep, which cannot be forced. It is giving the mind something else to attend to, something gentle, slow, and sufficiently interesting to partially occupy the monitoring function, without being so stimulating that it prevents the transition into sleep. Something like this. There is a quality of attention that Eastern contemplative traditions have described for thousands of years, and that Western psychology has only recently begun to study systematically. The quality of non-attachment. This is frequently misunderstood. Non-attachment does not mean not caring. It does not mean emotional numbness or deliberate indifference. It means holding experiences, feelings, outcomes, and even identities without gripping them too tightly. Being fully present with what is, while remaining somewhat flexible about its permanence. Psychologists studying this under the umbrella of what is now called mindfulness-based research have found consistent evidence that this quality of attention, engaged but not gripping, present but not rigid, is associated with significant regulation, better emotional regulation, and higher overall well-being. It appears to interrupt the feedback loop between thought and distress. The thought arises, but instead of being grasped and amplified and treated as a permanent state of affairs, it is observed and allowed to pass. John Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness-based approaches into Western clinical psychology in the 1970s, described mindfulness as paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. The non-judgmental aspect is crucial. The same thought that produces anguish when met with self-critical judgment often produces much less distress when met with simple observation. The thought is the same. The relationship to it is different. And that difference in the research literature is enormous. This is not asking you to meditate tonight or to do anything at all. It is simply noting that the quality of attention you are practicing right now, lying still, following a narration, letting thoughts arise and pass without following them too intently, is, in its way, a mild form of exactly this. The mind receiving input without gripping it, the awareness moving through content without being captured by it. The breath is the most available anchor the body provides. When the mind wanders, and it will, because that is what minds do, the breath is always there, slow, slightly slower than before, moving through the body in a rhythm that the nervous system knows how to read as safety. Let us talk about one more thing that sleep does. Quietly, while you rest, learning that happened during the day is being consolidated. The hippocampus, the brain region most associated with the formation of new memories, encodes the events of the day in a temporary form. During waking hours, the information is there, but lightly held. During sleep, particularly during the deep non-REM phases that dominate the earlier part of the night, the hippocampus replays these temporary recordings to the cortex, and the cortex gradually absorbs them, integrating the new information into the existing knowledge structure, making the memories more stable, more retrievable, more deeply encoded. This is not a metaphor. This is a neurological process that has been directly observed in sleeping animals and inferred from extensive indirect evidence in humans. The sleeping brain is rehearsing what the waking brain learned. What this means practically, the things you learned and experienced today, not just academic material, but the emotional lessons, the social observations, the new patterns you noticed, the conversations that offered some insight, are being processed and retained during the hours you are moving toward right now. Sleep is not the interruption of learning. It is one of the essential stages of it. There is a phrase that appears sometimes in the research on sleep and memory that captures this beautifully. It describes sleep as the period during which the brain does its homework. The waking hours provide the raw material. The sleeping hours do the integration. You are always, when you sleep, continuing the work of the day, just in a language you cannot consciously access. In a facility you cannot directly observe, with outcomes that will only become apparent when you wake. Here is something that tends to produce a quiet kind of wonder the first time it fully lands. The experience of reading these words, this specific experience happening right now, is unique in all of human history and all of human future. There has never been exactly this configuration of you. At this moment of your life, your words in this particular sequence, in this particular dark, this exact experience will not happen again. Not because it is extraordinary, but because all moments are. Every moment of conscious experience is in some sense unprecedented and unrepeatable. The version of you that hears the last word of this sentence is not quite the same as the version that heard the first. Time has passed. A tiny amount of something has changed. The river moves. This is not a cause for grief about impermanence. It is, for some people, a source of a specific kind of attention. A slightly sharper noticing of what is actually present. Because if this moment will not happen again, then it carries a different quality than a moment that can always be recovered or repeated. Philosophy has a word for this. The Japanese concept of ichigo ichi, roughly translated as one time, one meeting. The idea that each encounter, each moment, each conversation is happening for the first and last time simultaneously, and that this fact, held lightly, can make the ordinary feel a little less ordinary. Right now, you are lying down in the dark, moving toward sleep, in a moment that will not happen again in exactly this way. And there is something, however small, worth noticing about that. The brain is a pattern recognition machine. This is not a poetic description. It is a functional one. From the earliest moments of development, before consciousness in any meaningful sense has appeared, the brain is identifying regularities in the incoming data. This precedes that. This sound accompanies that face. This feeling comes before that relief. The world, in the brain's model of it, is not a collection of unrelated events. It is a structured system of patterns, and the brain's primary function is to detect, learn, and anticipate those patterns. This is why we see faces in clouds, and in wood grain, and in the random patterns of shadows. The brain is applying its most practiced perceptual skill, face detection, to ambiguous data, and occasionally finding it even where it does not exist. The tendency toward pattern recognition is so strong that it generates false positives regularly, and we find this charming or amusing rather than alarming, which says something itself about how comfortable we are with the fact that the brain sometimes mistakes patterns for reality. But this tendency toward pattern detection is also the source of something more subtle and more inconsequential. The patterns the brain has learned from past experience shape what it expects to find in new situations, and what it expects to find, it tends to find, even when the current situation is genuinely different from the ones that created the expectation. The person who was often criticized in childhood may carry a pattern that reads ambiguous social feedback as criticism, even from people who are not being critical. The person who learned early that asking for help led to rejection may carry a pattern that makes asking for help feel dangerous, even in relationships where it would be welcomed. These are not irrationalities. They are logical extrapolations from the available data. The data happened to be the formative experiences of a younger mind, and the pattern learned there is still running, still generating predictions, still wings, still shaping. What is perceived in the present, seeing the pattern, recognizing it as a pattern, and not as an immutable truth about how the world works, is not the same as dissolving it. But it is the first step, because a pattern that is visible as a pattern can be questioned, and a pattern that can be questioned can slowly be tested against new evidence, and new evidence, accumulated carefully over time, can begin to update the model. You are not at the mercy of your patterns. You are their most knowledgeable observer, and observation in the brain is never passive. There is a type of thinking that psychology calls counterfactual, the kind of thinking that plays out what might have been different if I had said something else, if I had taken a different path, if the timing had been slightly other than it was. Counterfactual thinking is nearly universal. It is one of the mind's most frequent occupations, particularly at night, and it carries a distinctive emotional signature. The wistfulness of near misses, the ache of roads not taken, the peculiar pain of the almost. The thing that almost happened, the version of events that was so close and yet resolved differently. Psychologists have found that this type of thinking serves real cognitive functions. It helps the brain learn from experience by explicitly constructing what would have had to be different for a better outcome to occur. The counterfactual version of events is, in effect, the brain drafting its own lesson plan. But it can also become its own kind of trap. The mind that lives predominantly in counterfactual space, that is more absorbed in what might have been than in what is, carries a particular weight, not because the alternative versions of events are false exactly, but because they are unresolvable. The past is the one territory the brain cannot actually revise. It can revise its understanding of the past, its relationship to it, its interpretation of it. But the events themselves are fixed, and the strange mercy in this is that whatever happened, whatever configuration of choices and circumstances and coincidences, produced the life you are living right now, with all of its imperfections and all of its unexpected gifts, is also the configuration that produced this exact moment. This night, the particular mind doing the listening, the particular mix of things you carry, and the particular way you carry them. Everything that brought you here also brought you here. That is not nothing. That is actually a great deal. The last thoughts before sleep are often strange ones. Not bad, necessarily, just loose. as if the mind has relaxed its grip on making sense and allowed things to simply be whatever they are. A fragment of music, a face not summoned, a sentence that arrived from nowhere and goes nowhere, the beginning of a feeling that does not quite finish itself. These are the night thoughts, the ones that live at the borderline, belonging equally to the waking world and the dreaming one. They are not trying to tell you something urgent. They are not instructions or warnings or unsolved problems presenting themselves one last time. They are the mind playing. At the edge of the day, in the margin between one state and another. Let them. Follow them briefly if they go somewhere interesting. Release them if they don't. There is no wrong way to move through the last moments of wakefulness. The direction of travel is set. The destination is certain. All that is required is the willingness to stop managing the journey. A word about dreams before you meet them. You will dream tonight. Whether you remember it or not in the morning, the brain will generate dreams. Not randomly, but with a kind of thematic coherence that reflects the emotional concerns and unresolved questions of the day, the week, the life. The characters who appear will often not be themselves. They will be composites, stand-ins, figures that carry the emotional weight of real people without being those people. The situations will follow their own logic, one that is emotional rather than physical. Do not try to interpret them tonight. Dream interpretation is a morning activity, if it interests you at all. Tonight, dreams are simply the medium through which the brain does some of its most important work, in the way it can only do when the logical, monitoring, as self-editing mind has stepped aside. Trust the process, even if you do not know what it is doing. Especially then, you have been here for a long time, longer perhaps than you expected to stay awake. And that is its own kind of gift. The mind that found something to follow, something gentle enough not to alarm, and interesting enough to hold the attention, long enough for the body to settle, and the thoughts to thin, and the night to do its work. This is what this kind of science offers in its best moments. Not answers to the unanswerable questions, not solutions to the genuinely difficult things, but company in the dark, the sense that the experience of being a person with a mind, moving through a life, carrying the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future, that this experience is understood, that it has been studied and thought about and found to be both common and remarkable, that you are not alone in it. 100 facts about the human mind, not numbered, not catalogued, not presented as a list to be memorized, just woven into the kind of narration that the night makes possible. Slow, associative, moving by feeling rather than by force. The mind is extraordinary in its daily functioning and its nightly repair, in its capacity for suffering and for healing, in the way it builds stories and holds on to beauty and generates connection, and sometimes at 2 in the morning makes the smallest worries feel like the end of the world, and then, after a night of sleep, restores the proportion that sleep alone can restore, if you are still here. If the mind has not yet released into sleep, then perhaps it needs one more thing, one more thread to follow, and that is fine. The brain decides when it is ready, not you. The conscious part of you that is reading these words is not the one who initiates sleep. It is simply the one that has to stop insisting on being awake. So let us offer it one last thing to consider. There is a concept in psychotherapy called containment. It refers to the therapist's ability to hold the client's difficult material, to receive it, acknowledge it, and remain steady in its presence without being overwhelmed by it. The well-trained therapist does not fix the difficult thing and does not pretend it is not difficult and does not minimize it or amplify it. They simply hold it, present, steady, not alarmed. And something in that experience of being held, of having difficulty witnessed by a calm and caring presence, tends to reduce the difficulty's size. Not eliminate it, reduce it. The same material held in a calm container is more survivable than material that exists alone in a fragmented inner world with no one to witness it. The word that researchers use for the inner capacity to do this for yourself is quite simple. It is presence, the ability to be genuinely present with your own experience, not running from it, not drowning in it, but witnessing it with some degree of equanimity. This capacity is trainable. It develops through practice, through therapy, through relationships, through the accumulation of moments in which you were present with something difficult and survived it. Every night that you lie down with whatever you are carrying, the worry, the unfinished business, the old embarrassing without an answer, and you do not fight it, and you do not drown in it, but you simply breathe and let it be what it is as the night moves through. You are practicing this quietly without a name for it, building slowly the capacity to hold yourself. Researchers who study gratitude, not as a philosophical concept, but as a neurological and psychological intervention, have found effects that are consistently surprising in their scope. People who engage in regular, specific gratitude practice, not a general sense of thankfulness, but the deliberate identification of specific things that were good or kind or present in neural activity, show measurable associated with moral cognition and interpersonal bonding. They show increased activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, a region associated with learning and decision-making. They show reduced activity in patterns associated with social threat assessment. And perhaps most relevant to this moment, gratitude practice has been associated with improved sleep quality, not because grateful people have fewer problems, or because the practice magically resolves difficulties, but because the intentional habit of deliberately scanning for what was good, what was present, what worked, what was enough, appears to produce a different baseline neurological state at the end of the day, a state that is slightly less activating, slightly more settled, slightly more inclined toward rest. The brain that ends the day in a scan for what was threatening, what went wrong, what is unresolved, what might go wrong tomorrow, is a brain that is preparing for a different kind of night than the brain that ends the day in a scan for what was present and good. Not a perfect day, not a day without difficulty, just what was here today that was worth noticing. What small thing went well? Who was kind? What moment, however brief, carried some quality of being genuinely alive? You do not have to answer this tonight, but you can, if you like, let the question drift through. The body is very heavy now, or it should be if all is going well. The kind of heaviness that is not burden, but weight, the satisfying density of muscles that have released, of a spine that has settled, of a body that has received the message that the day is done. There is a physiological process called sleep onset, the actual neurological transition from wakefulness into sleep that involves a cascade of changes across the brain and body. Core body temperature drops by about 1 degree. The muscles release tone. The eyes, even closed, make slow, rolling movements. Alpha waves in the brain give way to slower theta waves. Consciousness loosens its narrative grip. None of this requires your participation. It is happening, or it is approaching right now. The body knows the sequence. It has performed it tens of thousands of times. The mechanics of falling asleep are not something you do. They are something that happens to you when you stop preventing it. And the most common way people prevent it, without meaning to, is simply by continuing to try, by monitoring whether they are asleep yet, by treating wakefulness as a problem to be solved, by staying alert to their own level of alertness. The most useful instruction ever given about sleep is perhaps the simplest and the least actionable. Just let it happen, which is not an instruction at all, really. It is simply permission. Permission to stop managing. Permission to receive rather than achieve. You have that permission now. Here is the last science, the last fact. The human brain, your brain, specifically, the 3-pound universe of neural tissue that has been processing every word of this narration is the most complex known structure in the observable universe. More complex, by orders of magnitude, than any other arrangement of matter we have yet encountered or described. More connections between neurons in your cortex than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. A system of such intricate and dynamic organization that neuroscientists who have spent their entire careers studying it still describe it with a quality that approaches awe. And this extraordinary structure, this universe of organized complexity, is about to do something it does every single night. For every human being who has ever lived, it is going to dream. It is going to produce, from its own internal resources, experiences of such apparent vividness and reality that while they are happening, they are indistinguishable from waking life. Entire conversations, entire landscapes, entire emotional arcs, generated from within by a brain lying still in the dark, with its eyes closed. And in between the dreams, it will do its maintenance. It will clean itself. It will consolidate what was learned. It will soften what was painful. It will rehearse what needs rehearsal. It will connect what needs connecting. It will do, quietly and without instruction, all of the invisible work that makes tomorrow possible. And then, when the particular angle of the Earth relative to the Sun produces enough light to be detected through closed eyelids, or when the body's internal clock decides that enough time has passed or when the morning's first sound pierces the quiet. The brain will do something equally extraordinary. It will wake you up, assembled, integrated, cleaned, and ready, or at least readier, for the day. This is what tonight is for. This is what all the nights are for. Rest now.